Here are the top stories for today, June 29, 2020. The DILG says the Philippines is still doing good in containing COVID-19 compared to other countries. The AFP sends a 32-man military medical team to help in efforts in containing COVID-19 in Cebu City. Local government units urge Defense Secretary Lorenzana to suspend the return of locally stranded individuals to Regions 8 and 6. And the Coast Guard searches for the missing crew of a fishing boat that collided with a Hong Kong vessel in Mindoro. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, the Department of Interior and Local Government maintains that the Philippines is still doing good amid the report of the World Health Organization saying the country had the fastest rise of COVID-19 in the Western Pacific region. In an interview, Anyo said most of the new positive cases were coming from Region 7, NCR, and Region 8, but the rest of the country is doing good. Anyo said it was expected to record more positive cases as the country increases its testing capacities. Data from the WHO show that the country has 8,100 new cases since June 16, reportedly the highest among the 22 countries in the Western Pacific region. Meanwhile, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said it is unfair to compare the Philippines to Singapore, one of the countries in Asia that also reported a spike in the number of COVID-19 infections.
Tayo daw ang pinakamabilis na tumaas na kaso sa buong Western Pacific region. Totoo ba ho ito? We beg to disagree. Siyempre po, kung titignan natin yung pagtaas ng kaso, dapat yan in relation to your population. Bakit tayo ikukumpira sa Singapore? Ang Singapore, 5 milyon lang po yan. Isang syudad lang po yan. Hindi pa syudad ng Quezon City o Manila. Pero kung i-divide nyo yung kaso sa per million population, ito po ang lalabas. Ang pinakamataas sa Western Pacific, India, 549,197. Followed by Pakistan, 202,955. Bangladesh, 137,787. Indonesia, 54,010. Singapore, 43,459. Tapos po ang Pilipinas at 35,455. So kung i-divide niyo po ang kaso per million population, malinaw po, hindi po magsisinungaling ang datos. Hindi po tayo ang pinakamabilis na dumami ng kaso sa Western Pacific region.
Roque also announced a temporary moratorium on locally stranded individuals. This as some local government units, particularly in Eastern Visayas, earlier suspended the transportation of stranded residents due to the spike of infections. Several cities and provinces in Eastern Visayas have emerged as hotspots, including Ormoc City, Leyte, Southern Leyte, and Samar. LGUs have reported the lack of isolation facilities, especially with the increasing number of COVID-19 cases.
Nagpupulong po ngayon ang IATF. Para malinaw po, ang naapruban po ngayong hapon pa lamang ay ang moratorium sa pagpapauwi ng locally stranded individuals sa mga lugar na ito. Hindi po nationwide, ito na po yung mga lugar na merong moratorium lamang. Ang buong Region 6, ang buong Cebu Island, kasama na po ang Mactan, ang Region 8 at ang Caraga.
The president is expected to announce updated quarantine levels throughout the country tomorrow, June 30. Defense Secretary Lorenzana said the president will meet the IATF on Tuesday afternoon and will make the announcement after. Meanwhile, DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya said it is unlikely that the current GCQ status would be relaxed nor be lifted as the number of COVID-19 infections increase. He said they are collating data through a technical working group that will draft a recommendation for the Interagency Task Force on the management of emerging infectious diseases. Malaya assured that the IATF is basing their decisions on science, especially on the number of cases tallied by the Department of Health. He also defended what critics said is the government's militarized response to the COVID-19 pandemic, saying health protocols are being implemented to stop the spread of the disease. The House of Representatives is pushing for COVID-19 vaccine fund in the 2021 budget. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano said fund must be ready in case there is already an available vaccine for the dreaded disease. Cayetano said the proposed 4.3 trillion peso budget may not be enough, and the House, together with the Senate and the Department of Finance, are now close to agreeing on the final version of the proposed legislation. Meanwhile, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo stressed the importance of strict enforcement of measures and proper compliance as crucial in curbing the deadly disease. Go, chairman of the Senate Health and Demography Committee, said that while there is still no vaccine for this disease, the only way to slow down the rate of COVID-19 infections is to have people cooperate as the government works on improving its capacity to provide critical care to patients. He also urged the government to beef up T3 or Test, Trace, Treat project, which aims to expand national testing capacity to 50,000 tests per day by the end of the month. Some personnel in Pasig City Hall are reportedly isolated due to exposure to COVID-19 patient. Meanwhile, a hospital in Cagayan de Oro receives donations from private sectors in a bid to fight COVID-19. More on these from Chris Mundo.
Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto apologized over some delays on the issuance of travel certificates and other public transactions, as some of their personnel were reportedly exposed to a patient infected with COVID-19. Some personnel of Pasig City Health Office and the City Epidemiology Surveillance Unit were placed under quarantine. Soto said the staff would still continue to do their duties through a work from quarantine set up using their mobile phones and other electronic gadgets. In other news, one more Filipino abroad got infected with COVID-19, bringing the number of infected persons overseas to 8,433. In its case bulletin, the DFA said the additional case is from the Middle East. The DFA also reported 2 new deaths and no new recoveries. The department advised overseas Filipinos who need repatriation assistance to contact the nearest Philippine embassy or consulate in their area. Back home, Senator Christopher Lawrence Bongo facilitated the turnover of a unit of ultrasound machine donated by Pilipinas Shell Foundation Incorporated to J.R. Borja General Hospital in Cagayan de Oro City. Other private sectors also donated 2,000 pieces of face masks and 10 pieces of thermal scanners. Go thanked the private donors for their generosity and for trusting him and his office to facilitate distribution and turn over to hospitals that need help the most. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The Department of Labor and Employment assures that the government is ready to serve more returning overseas Filipino workers displaced by the pandemic. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III said DOLA's assistance programs and other measures to aid migrant workers are in place the moment they arrive in the country. Bello made the statement as he welcomed the assurance of the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines last Friday to allow more airlines to fly for OFW repatriation. He said the clarification from CAAP is good news for the repatriation efforts to aid thousands of crisis-hit migrant workers around the globe. Meanwhile, Bello on Sunday said he is hoping to fly home the remains of 301 dead OFWs before the deadline set by the Saudi government for their repatriation. The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration will charter 2 flights from Riyadh and Jeddah from various regions in Saudi Arabia before the bodies are flown back to the Philippines. Still to come, The AFP sends a 32-man military medical team to help efforts to contain COVID-19 in Cebu City. Local government units urge Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana to suspend the return of locally stranded individuals to Regions 8 and 6. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Kakagaling ko lang ng grocery. Siyempre, hindi ko hahayaan na pumasok ang COVID-19 sa bahay at mapahamak ang pamilya ko. Kaya iiwan ko ang sapatos ko sa labas. At ngayon, maghuhugas ako ng kamay ng 20 seconds. O yan, wala na ang virus. Tandaan, buhay ng pamilya natin na nakasalalay. Let's heal as one.
Alam niyo ba na pumapasok ang COVID-19 sa ating katawan sa pamamagitan ng mata, ilong at bibig? Kaya lagi kaming conscious dito sa bahay kapag umuubo kami. Lagi kami naghuhugas ng kamay in 20 seconds. Pag lumalabas kami, lagi namin suot ang mask. Lagi lang natin tatandaan mga mamshi. Buhay ng pamilya natin ang nakasalalay dito. Let's heal as one.
A military medical team consisting of 9 doctors, 10 nurses, and 13 medical aides are helping in ongoing efforts to contain the COVID-19 spike in Cebu City. Task Force Central, headed by Major Maria Adesita Sagario, underwent precautionary swab testing and flu vaccination prior to their flight on Sunday. AFP Vice Chief of Staff Vice Admiral Gaudencio Collado Jr. led the send-off ceremony at the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City. National Task Force COVID-19 Head Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. lauded the AFP medical team for answering the call for help from medical frontliners in Cebu City. DENR Secretary Roy Simatu reminded to take care of themselves and perform their duties diligently. The AFP has already deployed 405 medical personnel in different emergency quarantine facilities nationwide, including the Ninoy Aquino Stadium, World Trade Center, and Rizal Memorial Coliseum in Metro Manila. Unlike last week's Monday blues, only a few commuters trooped to the streets waiting for a public ride this morning. This is attributed to the point-to-point trip on UV Express, such that most of the commuters who need to get off along the route have to take alternative modes of transportation. The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has allowed the resumption of UV Express operations starting today. LTFRB Chairman Martin Delgra said the deployment of the UV Express is in line with a gradual, calibrated, and calculated approach of the Department of Transportation on the resumption of public transportation in Metro Manila amid the general community quarantine. Some 980 UV Express units are now plying to and from Metro Manila in 47 routes. Delgra said he is not discounting the possibility of deploying additional modern and traditional jeepneys depending on passenger demand. He also appealed to operators and drivers of UV Express to strictly comply with the guidelines such as no pick up and drop off passengers and not passing through nor traverse EDSA and Commonwealth Avenue except to cross. Health protocols must also be observed at all times. The government is set and ready to implement its enhanced partnership against hunger and poverty program in various provinces in central Luzon. The Department of Agrarian Reform, the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology and Farmers Groups entered into a Memorandum of Understanding at Clark, Pampanga last Friday. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles on Sunday said the administration was fully committed to ensuring food security and addressing hunger through programs that strengthen yield and increase the number of farmers. Nograles acknowledged there is a need to ensure availability, accessibility, and capability in the food and poverty campaign, which are the key focus of the EPA-HP. The Interagency Task Force Zero Hunger will measure their success by how much they address food security, improve general nutrition, and develop sustainable agriculture. A total of 260 agrarian reform beneficiaries received certificates of land ownership award from the Department of Agrarian Reform on June 24 amidst the crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The titles cover 394 hectares located in Barangays Tarum, Ibid, and Cuyapi, Libmanan. DAR Secretary John Castriciones said the issuance of titles manifest the government's recognition of the role of farmers as the new heroes of the country. The DAR also led the distribution of farm inputs to more than 300 beneficiaries, consisting of seedlings, fertilizers, pesticides, and farm tools. Representative Luis Raymond Villafuerte signified his support to his constituents by assuring them that he would implement programs and activities to make their lives better. Presidential Anti-Corruption Commissioner Greco Bellica also told the farmers not to sell their lands and reminded them of the importance of finally owning the land they till. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has pointed to locally stranded individuals returning to Region 6 and Region 8 as the cause of the spread of COVID-19 there. This according to data collected from Iloilo and Bacolod City. Lorenzana said local government units are asking to suspend the trips of LSIs from Metro Manila for at least 2 weeks. The LGU said they are lacking in quarantine facilities that would accommodate returnees. Meantime, Lorenzana has advised LSIs returning to Region 6 and 8 from Metro Manila to refrain from going to airports and seaports. LGUs are expected to issue clearances to LSIs before they are allowed to go home. In our business news, the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines is calling on micro, small, and medium enterprises to protect their intellectual property rights in order to gain or maintain a competitive edge even amid a crisis. IPOPHL Director General Roel Barba urged MSMEs to explore and take advantage of the IP system, citing its multi-pronged purposes, which includes equipping businesses to gain a stronger market position. Barba said protection of brand names means that work meets the legal standards for owners to have temporary rights to profit exclusively from these properties. To boost support for MSMEs, IPOPHL will soon partner with the Department of Trade and Industry's Philippine Trade Trading Center Global MSME Academy, the National Center of MSME Training. Under the said partnership, the two agencies under the DTI will work together to assist MSMEs in developing their IP strategies. Having an IP strategy will enable MSMEs to be more profitable and more attractive to investors who can provide them with capital. Government troops are set to go after the remnants of a new People's Army front in Agusan del Norte after it suffered numerous casualties from clashes in the past months. More on this from Marita Mawai.
Government troopers are set to pursue the remaining members of Guerrilla Front 4A of the Communist New People's Army operating in the provinces of Agusan del Norte and parts of Misamis Oriental. The 402nd Infantry Brigade said that more than 15 NPA GF-4A rebels were killed in a clash last May 10 in the boundary of Agusan del Norte and Misamis Oriental. GF4A combatants including militia ng bayan members surrendered after the encounter. The Army vows to not only finish the remaining combatants of GF4A but also clear the remaining barangays in the area from the influence of the NPA. Meanwhile, a cache of firearms and ammunition was discovered by a civilian on Saturday noon at an abandoned house in a remote village in Bulan Town in Sorsogon. The recovered cache of firearms and ammunition consists of 10 M16 rifles and boxes of assorted ammunition. Investigators could not yet say whether the arms cache was a government issue or it belonged to a group of suspected NPA or a criminal group operating in the province. In Sultan Kudarat, tribal leaders of Calamansig town have denounced the presence of the NPA in their communities. Leaders of the IPs from the villages of Ginalaan and Nalilidan last Friday said they want to attain peace in their tribal lands by eradicating the influence of communist rebels. The dialogue led by the Municipal Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict was attended by tribal leaders of the Dulangan Manobo tribe. The gathering primarily aims to solicit the commitment of tribal leaders in denouncing the NPAs in their communities and encourage their support towards the government's thrust in peace and sustainable economic development in Calamansig. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muahe.
Up next, the Coast Guard searches for the missing crew of a fishing boat that collided with a Hong Kong vessel in Mindoro. And the Higaonon tribe asks President Duterte to help them protect the Limunsudan Falls. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Hi Caps! Kamusta?
Well, ito dahil sa COVID-19, medyo stress.
Okay lang yan Caps. Napagdaanan ko din yan.
Ano kaya pwede natin gawin, no?
Kung nararamdaman mo na gulong-gulo ka na sa mga naririnig mo, sa mga nababasa mo, mag-pause ka muna, saka ka huminga ng malalim.
Buti na lang tumawag ka. Iba talaga pag may nangangamusta.
A strong body starts with a strong mind.
Tama. Let's heal as one.
Mga mommies, pagdating sa COVID-19, dapat hindi tayo kampante. Bagamat hindi nakikita ang sakit na ito ay nakamamatay. At hanggang ngayon wala pa rin lunas. Kaya protektahan natin ang ating pamilya. Laging maghugas ng kamay, huwag hahawakan ng mukha, at manatili sa bahay para makaiwas sa sakit na ito. Tandaan, buhay ng pamilya natin ang nakasalalay dito. Let's heal as one.
The Philippine Coast Guard is searching for 12 of the 14 crew members who went missing in the vicinity of Occidental Mindoro, where a Hong Kong-flagged cargo vessel collided with their fishing boat. PCG spokesperson Commodore Arman Balilot said that the collision happened in Mamburao, Occidental Mindoro early Sunday. The missing Filipino crew were on board FV Liberty 5 from Cagayan de Tawi-Tawi Island on the way to Navotas. The Hong Kong vessel was MV Vienna Wood, which departed from Subic, is now held for further investigation. Balilo said rescuers have found the overturned fishing boat and they will search the vicinity for the missing crew. Those who will be located will be brought to the nearest Coast Guard station in Mindoro. The Department of Interior and Local Government reminds barangay officials of their role in implementing protocols amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This as 7 officials are set to face charges for their involvement in anomalies in the Social Amelioration Program. More on this from REACTIVATION.
7 barangay officials will face administrative sanctions for alleged Social Amelioration Program or SAP anomalies. Department of the Interior and Local Government Regional Director Arnel Agabe said during the Normin COVID-19 Response Task Force press conference June 26.
Kini sila mao ang sa Barangay Pugon, Balingasag, Misamis Oriental, Barangay Tibanga sa Iligan City, sa Bulwa, Cagayan de Oro City, sa Lapinig, Kapatagan, Lanao del Norte, sa Ampinikan, Salay, Misamis Oriental, sa Mabunga, Baungon, Bukidnon, ug sa Banyadero, Usamis City. Okay, so as far as Cagayan de Oro City, kini siya dili usa ka zone president mao ang gifailan og complaint.
Agabe added that barangay officials should be the ones to lead the implementation and ensure that all minimum public health standards are observed based on the administrative orders of the Department of Health. Such standards include the mandatory wearing of face masks, observance of social distancing, and ensuring that unnecessary mass gathering will not take place in any barangay.
And of course, if ever there will be complaints, ma-document na to ang mga barangay officials wala magpatuman sa minimum public health standards sa ilahang tagsa-tagsa ng mga lugar. Ay kayan nga sanction, administrative sanctions if ever complaints against them will prosper sa forum kung asa i-file ang maong administrative complaint.
As for the SAP distribution, Agabe reiterates that the beneficiaries of the second tranche of SAP will be the waitlisted or left-out families who were not included in the first tranche. The Department of Social Welfare and Development, Philippine National Police, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines will lead the distribution for the qualified waitlisted families, and hopefully the agency concerned will be able to provide a schedule of release next week. For the PNA Newsroom, REACTIVATION, Philippine Information Agency, Cagayan de Oro.
In our 4 news, global COVID-19 cases have exceeded 10 million on Sunday, according to U.S.-based Johns Hopkins University. The worldwide tally of virus-linked deaths has reached nearly 500,000, while the number of recoveries tops 5 million. The U.S. remains the worst-hit country with over 2.5 million infections, while its death toll exceeds 125,500 persons. In Brazil, which has the largest number of COVID-19 cases and deaths in Latin America, has the second highest number of infections worldwide with 1.31 million. Russia, India, Italy, Spain, and the UK are also among the hardest hit countries in the world. China, the ground zero of the virus, registered nearly 85,000 cases so far. Overall, the virus has spread to 188 countries and regions since late last year. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat hailed on Friday the reactivation of the tourist police units, saying it would hasten the tourism industry's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Puyat's statement came after PNP Chief Archie Gamboa announced that the tourist-oriented Police for Community Order and Protection would be revived in areas where quarantine restrictions have been eased. In addition to enforcing proper health protocols, the tourist police will also provide added security operations for local tourists and establishments and respond to tourists-related security and safety issues. Gamboa said the top CAAP would strengthen the existing tourist police assistance desk across the country. Under the 2019 Integrated Top CAAP program, the DOT will train police personnel on the basic principles of tourist safety and the Filipino brand of service and hospitality. Last year, 719 police personnel graduated from the program. The Higaonon tribesmen are appealing to President Rodrigo Duterte to help them protect and preserve the hidden giant waterfalls in the boundaries of Bukidnon, Lanao del Sur, and Lanao del Norte. The LIMUNSUDAN Falls is a two-tiered waterfall in the Bayou River, which flows down from Bukidnon to Lanao del Norte. Mindanao Development Authority Secretary Emmanuel Piñol said the tribesmen considered the LIMUNSUDAN Falls as a sacred place. He said worries mounted as the waterfalls are reportedly eyed as a potential hydropower generation resource. The Higaonons have lived in the area for hundreds of years, and the area around the majestic waterfalls is a sacred place for them. Piñol said there are more sustainable ways of generating power needed for development. He said people should preserve and protect this wonder of nature for the next generation. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Agrarian Reform in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao led on Sunday the opening of a harvest festival in Datu Odin, Sinsuat, Maguindanao. Around 500 farmers and stakeholders in the province's 36 municipalities witnessed the performance of hybrid rice varieties used in a demo farm. MAFAR personnel also conducted field visitation and crop cutting activities and provided information dissemination on inbred and hybrid rice production. MAFAR Minister Dr. Mohammad Yaqub said the 15-hectare model farm was the result of the effort, coordination, and unity of the farmers in the region with the support of their local government unit. Alex Ibrahim, head of the local farm technicians BARMM, meanwhile said that with the new equipment and hybrid rice seeds, harvests are expected to double or triple in the coming months. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The DILG says the Philippines is still doing good in containing COVID-19 compared to other countries. The AFP sends a 32-man military medical team to help in efforts in containing COVID-19 in Cebu City. Local government units urge Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana to suspend the return of locally stranded individuals to Regions 8 and 6. And the Coast Guard searches for the missing crew of a fishing boat that collided with a Hong Kong vessel in Mindoro. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day and stay safe, everyone.